Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to show you the fourth tiebreak game between Magnus Carlsen and Ding Liren, a game to decide the winner of the Sinquefield Cup. Ding managed to beat Carlsen in the third game, which was also the first blitz game. So this puts Carlsen in a must-win situation. Carlsen had white pieces. He decided to try an opening that he hasn't played in this tournament, which is the Roy Lopez. And this normally leads to close strategical positions. Carlsen was probably ready for a long battle, hoping for Ding to slip up. So they had this exact same position, Carlsen against Ding, in the Champions Showdown in St. Louis in 2017, and Carlsen actually won that game. So in that game, Ding castled, but here he played knight to a5. Carlsen retreated his bishop, c5 from Ding. Carlsen played d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, castles, h3, and now rook to e8 is the new move in the position. And now Carlsen played d5, closing the center and hoping to keep as many pieces on the board. Bishop d7 from Ding, knight to c3, queen to b8, so Ding shifts his attention to the queen side. And this makes room for the rook to come over to c8, where black might try to take control of the open c-file. Carlsen played bishop to d3, removing the bishop from a potentially vulnerable spot. Ding played rook c8, knight to e2, knight to b7, repositioning that misplaced knight. And now g4. So Magnus goes for a kingside attack to counter black's queenside initiative. But this move is double-edged, as after knight to c5 from Ding, which attacks the e4 pawn twice, white then has to part with his light square bishop. And without that light square bishop covering c2, it will be easier for black to infiltrate on the c-file. So b4 was played by Ding, threatening to play bishop b5. Therefore, rook to e1 from Magnus. And now queen to b5 from Ding, trading queens, hoping to trade queens, which would bring Ding closer to a draw. So Magnus naturally declines with queen to d1. Now rook c7 from Ding, preparing to just double his rooks. Bishop e3, rook a to c8. And this pressure down the c-file made Magnus a little worried, so he played knight to d2, hoping to then close the b-file by potentially sticking a knight on c4. Ding played g6, just preventing any potential knight f5s. Now b3 from Carlsen, queen b7. Ding prepares to counter Carlsen's idea of knight c4 with bishop to b5. So the idea is simply to remove that knight. Therefore, Carlsen played the knight to a5, attacking the queen. And now Carlsen played queen to d2, hitting that pawn. So bishop d2 was also an option, but there is an incredibly sharp line with queen b6. We're going to take a bit of a detour to explore this line. So if bishop takes b4, then h5, not the kind of move you would play in a blitz game. The purpose is to allow some trades on h5 to then open up this bishop. This will eventually make some sense. So now rook c3, attacking that pin, the knight, because this pawn is pinned. And if that's taken, then you can see that there are two pieces hanging. So if king g2, now rook c2 threatens queen takes f2. So you can defend with bishop d2 or queen to f3. Let's take a look at queen f3 first. So now bishop d7, attacking the bishop and also threatening some tactics in bishop takes h3. So after a3 defending, bishop takes h3, king g1. If that's taken, then rook takes f2. And simply doubling on the second file is going to be decisive. And here knight to h7, the attack continues. So if king g1, Then bishop g4, and after queen to e3, white has to protect f2, and black is more than fine in this position. So going back to here, if bishop d2 trying to block the rook, then knight takes h5, and here bishop g5, the whole purpose behind the move h5. And this is just an insane position, which looks a little easier to play for black, as you can see that he is the one exerting pressure in this position. And I'm just going to stop here and return to the game. So queen d2 was played by Magnus. Who knows, maybe Magnus saw this idea of queen b6, therefore deciding to keep the bishop on e3. Rook c3 from Liren, threatening to win that knight, maybe with queen c7 or bishop c8, bishop d8. So Carlsen played a3, trying to undermine this rook. So now if you go queen c7, then a takes b4 will defend the knight. So Ding captured, knight to c6, which now disconnects the rooks. Ding had to have foreseen this before playing rook to c3. So here he gave up the exchange, but he managed to win quite a few pawns in the process. And he set a very cunning trap for Magnus, which Magnus walked into with g5. So g5 appears to remove the defender of that bishop, but here comes the beautiful retreat, bishop to a8 from Ding. And this looks incredibly dangerous for Magnus. Already black is getting ready to form a deadly battery with queen b7 and the simple idea of delivering mates on g2. If that's taken, well, black can be assured at least a draw with queen b7. And this is going to be draw by repetition. If the king steps, let's say to d2, then white will lose the game. And here a5 is decisive, as black cannot maintain defense of the bishop. So Magnus played queen takes a6, which for the moment stops queen b7. But Ding continues the pressure, knight d5. Black's pieces are very active. And there's also the threat of playing knight b4 and knight c2. So Carlsen has to react actively as well. He played bishop to a7, queen c7, and now the rook to c1, attacking the queen, and also sidestepping any potential knight forks. So Ding decides to exchange his queen for the two rooks, banking on the pressure on the long diagonal. For now, Magnus still has this square protected by his knight. So how does Ding continue? First he plays bishop c6. It's a good idea to keep everything nice and protected while playing against the queen. So a very principled move by Ding. Magnus eliminated that dangerous pawn. And now bishop takes g5. And bishop f4 is coming to pin that knight. And black is looking good here. So the best defense is to go knight to e2, simply covering that f4 square. But Carlsen played queen takes d6, which looks very dangerous as it threatens to potentially mate on the dark squares with queen to f8. Then continued bishop f4 and now bishop c5. So how does black stop the mate threat on f8? Note that this bishop on c6 is also hanging. Astoundingly, Ding manages to find the only defense which wins the game. Here, knight to e7. And Magnus Carlsen actually resigned in this position. So this is just an amazing move by Ding, defending against the mate threat of queen f8. And at the same time, threatening rook h1 mate as this knight is pinned. The only way to prolong the game is to sacrifice the queen, but then black just wins with ease. So Liren wins the tiebreaks, and he is now the new champion of the Sinquefield Cup. I hope you enjoyed this game. Do consider subscribing to the channel for more chess content. Thanks for watching and have a great day.